Welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths about corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about on their fancy website and trade show giveaways, all to protect you from cyber criminals. And now, here's your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Hello and welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by Mike Rotondo and Lauro Chavez. And today we are talking about people versus robots. We also say people are greater than tools or software or technologies. All of those things. I know we talk about that off and on throughout the podcast. We want to dive in a little bit deeper today, talk about why. Why is that? Where tools and products are very beneficial for your organization, but also where they're limited and how to balance between the two. But before we do that, guess who's kicking off the news? Mike Rotondo, that's you.
Good morning, everybody. And I just have to comment, Zach, some people are tools.
I'm a tool.
If humans against robots, we are not discussing the Terminator franchise. Just keep that in mind. This is actually a cybersecurity tool.
Man, some people are tools. You're right. That's just harsh, though, man. That's harsh.
I can name about 20 off the top of my head, but I'm not going to do that today on an open forum.
Let's not name names.
You know who you are.
Let's dive into the news, and I bet you won't say anything about Microsoft today, but maybe I'm wrong.
Only the first four. Cybercriminals swarm Windows utility registry, Reg SVR32 to spread malware. Windows living off the land binary, LOLBIN, known as Reg SVR32, is seeing a big uptick in abuse lately. Researchers are warning mainly spreading Trojans like Lokibot, Qbot. Dalbins are legitimate native utilities used daily in various computing environments that cyber criminals are using to evade detection by blending into normal traffic patterns. So
I have no idea what you just said, but that sounds good.
Basically, they're abusing this binary and using it to spread traffic.
All I heard was Microsoft equals crap.
Lots of different Trojan names in there.
Yeah. So the other thing is that Microsoft will block macros by default from internet downloads, which is, a good idea, but we'll see how long it takes for them to break something and it be used to exploit. But anyway, Microsoft will make it even more difficult to download and run malicious Office documents from the internet. The company announced that this week. It's a change welcomed by security pros like us. Office macros, which provide programming functions for use in common workplace documents, have been a launching pad for malicious actors since the Clinton administration. I don't know why they chose to go with that. The concept virus first appeared in 1995. Nearly 30 years later, it's still a problem, despite Microsoft's previous efforts to curb adversarial use. Fake Windows 11 upgrade installers infect you with Redline malware. Threat actors have started distributing fake Windows 11 upgrade installers to users of Windows 10, tricking them into downloading and executing Redline stealer malware. The timing of the attack coincides with the moment Microsoft announced Windows 11 broad deployment phase, so the attackers are well prepared for this. So be careful what you click on. Linux malware is on the rise, with Linux frequently used as a basis for cloud services, virtual machine hosts, and container-based infrastructure. Attackers have increasingly targeted Linux environments with sophisticated exploits and malware. A new analysis based on telemetry collected from attacks on VMware customers shows an increasing number of ransomware programs targeting Linux hosts to infect virtual machine images or containers. More use of cryptojacking to monetize illicit access, and more than 14,000 instances of Cobalt Strike, 56% of which are pirated copies used by criminals or thrifty companies that have not bought licenses. The Red Team tool has become so popular as a way to manage compromised machines that underground developers created their own protocol compatible with versions of Windows program for Linux. VMware states in a newly released report exposing malware in Linux-based multi-cloud environments. So basically, long story short, there's a lot of Linux malware and people are using cracked versions of Cobalt Strike to do it. So end of 2021 witnessed an explosion of RDP brute force attacks. RDP brute force attacks continue to be one of the most used attack vectors for breaching enterprise networks. ESET's latest threat report has revealed RDP brute force attacks escalated through all of 2020 and 2021. And the last 4 months of 2021 brought further acceleration with an increase of 274%, which is incredible. We're talking about going from 55 billion to 206 billion. Email threats have risen by 8.5% in the last 4-month period, and by 145.4% in 2021 over 2020. Lastly, web threats were up by 2.6% in the last 4 months of 2021. Lastly, cloud migrations are taking longer and require bigger budgets than expected. So those of you who are buying into the cloud being a cost savings, 84% of IT decision makers across the US and UK say their organization is currently using more than one cloud platform. As business demands for more choice, flexibility, and agility pushes multi-cloud mainstream into the year ahead, according to OneCloud's report, the report found that companies using multiple cloud platforms, 48% are taking a hybrid approach by utilizing both public and private, but costs are going up exponentially. So there's a couple of headlines that you need to put out that you can take a look at. CISA, FBI, and NSA issue advisory on severe increase in ransomware attacks. I'm not sure if this is good news or bad news, but the Senate Homeland leaders packaged trio of cyber bills tied to incident reporting, cloud, and oversight. I'm not sure that senators know much about technology, but we'll see what they come out with. CISA orders federal agencies to fix actively exploited Windows bugs. The FBI is warning of criminals escalating SIM swap, which is pretty critical. Attacks to steal millions. Among that, there's just some other interesting notes out there that go ahead and take a look at them. But lastly, I just wanted to say this out loud. Fritz Frog, botnet grows 10 times. Hits healthcare, EDU, and government systems. So let's end on Fritz Frog.
Fritz Frog.
All right, Laura, what do we got?
Fritz Frog. I like that. Alliteration.
You know,
okay.
I wanted to say out loud to humans because you say it out loud and the pets hear it and all they hear is Walker treats. So.
Yeah, exactly. So a couple things, right? If you're using RDP, and I'm not going to say that Microsoft has the best remote management software, but nor would I ever say that. But if you are brazen enough to use RDP, please put it behind some form of like VPN so that you've at least got some protection. But opening it up to the public internet, thinking that's going to help you manage everything is just, you're just asking for bad guys to come beat on the door, right? I mean, that's
any firewall rule in front of it, you're fine.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, public allow all. That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. So, a couple things to talk about today. If you're using Kyocera phones and you're running the command center, there's a directory traversal file disclosure that is available for unauthenticated users. And the cool thing about this, or the grim thing about this, is that the files that you have disclosed access to are root and admin and the sys file that's going to have the backup file as well, that's going to have some information in it that's probably going to allow you to go a little further. So that file disclosure through directory traversal is a kind of a major issue with this Kyocera command center. So make sure that if you're using that, that you've got the upgrade for it. And then for all of you penetration testers or practitioners of the craft, as I like to call them, if you're still using Cain Enable, be careful. All right. I know that if you're not using like Nano Cortex or something modern and you're going with the old tried and true Cain Enable, there's an unquoted service path vulnerability for that. So if you've got the server running, someone's going to be able to find you. Okay. So be careful with Cain Enable. That's 4956. I'm not sure that they've updated it because this is really old software. So this might just be part of the game for you if you're running Cain Enable. Make sure you shut down those server processes when you're done playing. And last but not least, I want to talk about a piece of software called Evil Jinx 2. Now, the reason this is important is it's not necessarily an exploit, but it's a methodology that cyber criminals are using now to bypass multi-factor authentication. So Evil Jinx is a man-in-the-middle phishing platform that's open source. You can download it from Git, but please don't do that. But essentially, the trick here is to get a domain that looks like the victim domain, right? So you've still got to buy a domain and be connected to a domain and all that sort of thing. But essentially, you can send this phish to the victim, and it is they bypass through Evil Jinx and go to the actual website that they're going to. You're able to steal all those authenticated session tokens that are happening in the browser and being able to replay those on the attacker side and be able to bypass everybody's multi-factor authentication. So for those of you using MFA, You should all be using MFA, but just a piece of advice: don't say "remember my computer." I know it's a pain to get the code in your phone or open up your one-time PIN app, but if you authenticate with multi-factor each time, you're going to reduce your risk with these new kind of threat actors and the new playbook that they have. So try not to use that "remember my computer for 30 days" or "remember this computer" feature, because those authenticated session tokens are reserved on that computer for a long period of time. And so if you happen to fall victim, or you've got a young one or a significant other that happens to fall victim on your computer, you're going to lose all of your authenticated sites, because they're going to be able to bypass that, especially if you're using crypto and those sorts of things. And work email, make sure you're looking out for those phishing links and setting those one-time passwords to happen each time you log in. All right, well, that is probably more than enough for exploits today. Zach, we got a cool topic, right? We're talking about the T1000.
Yeah, hold on a second though. I'm looking into this free Amazon gift card that just popped up in my inbox here. I think I'm gonna.
Oh yeah.
I think I won $100 on Amazon. I should click that link.
You should. I just sent that to you. Actually.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, it's legit.
Awesome. Well,
It's
good.
legit.
It looks legit. It says Amazon. So, well, outstanding. And hey, just a reminder, the news articles are on the podcast post on the website. So cyberrantspodcast.com. Check it out. Go to the episode show notes and you'll have links to all the articles. Mike has done the job of curating all this news in cybersecurity into just the stuff that you really need to know about, because there's a lot of junk out there. So probably the best resource in the world for news articles, if I would say so myself.
I'd say so myself too.
That. If you're getting your news from any other source but Silent Sector, then you're lost.
We are the truth. I mean, this is absolutely the central source of truth in all things cyber. So, but everybody knows that, right? Our hundreds of millions of listeners know that. But check out the website. And we are going to take a quick commercial break and be right back.
Want even more Cyber Rants? Be sure to subscribe to the Cyber Rants podcast. Get your copy of our best-selling book, Cyber Rants, on Amazon today. This podcast is brought to you by Silent Sector, the firm dedicated to building world-class cybersecurity programs for mid-market and emerging companies across the U.S. Silent Sector also provides industry-leading penetration tests and cyber risk assessments. Visit silentsector.com and contact us today.
Let's dive into it. A topic we all know and love. Let's talk about people versus machines, people versus robots, computers or tools. And as you mentioned before, I know, Mike, you said some people are tools. We won't dive into that conversation today, right? But really, I think there's a lot of misconception. I'll start us out by basically just talking about the industry and kind of what we see. We are in a cybersecurity gold rush and have been for the last few years, right? A lot of money is getting poured into the cybersecurity industry from private equity, venture capital, even angel investors, right, at a smaller level. People are just dumping money and they hear cybersecurity, oh, it's got to be good, right? And what do people want to see when they're dumping money into startups in a lot of cases, right? And you look at the case of venture capital, for example, they're going to invest in a whole bunch of different companies, knowing that most of them will fail, but they'll have one or two big wins that will make up for the rest of them. So a lot of these things are happening. Money is being poured into products, right? Why products? Because a services company like ours is not a sexy business model, right? It's more of a linear growth path. It's very even keel, long term, low risk, but also lower potential reward, right? Whereas these software companies and tool product companies, the idea there is we could potentially get a bunch of users, have a hockey stick multiple, right? Because we can build the software and then license it many, many, many times over, right? So you have this potential for exponential growth. So that being said, there are a lot of people in this gold rush, a lot of money being poured into cybersecurity tools, being that it's so easy to raise capital for cybersecurity products, there are far fewer barriers to entry than certain other businesses out there, and people are diving right in. As a result, lots and lots of new tools and products coming on the market, millions and millions of dollars being poured into marketing, and they're out there in front of everybody's face. So the security professional or the IT professional, or maybe even the non-technical professional out there saying, well, what do we do about cybersecurity or this problem or that problem? They say, oh, well, they're pretty much any problem you have, there's a tool out there that's going to promise it's going to fix it, right? So today, let's talk about, is that really the case? And do you really need that? Or are there better ways to fix your problems without overburdening yourself with technologies and the expenses that come with it? What do you guys think?
I think I'm a tool.
I agree with that.
You mean a machine. I think you mean a machine. Cyborg.
Yamashino. So, well, I'll take a jump in the ring here with this because, yeah, this is kind of close to my heart, and we, Mike knows as well. We deal with a lot of companies that have invested a lot of money in technologies, right? And I know the conversation is driven just specifically for cybersecurity technologies, but across the board, and specifically in cybersecurity technologies and tools, we typically see that they've spent an initial a lot amount of money to purchase the tools, and then also deploy the tools, and then we're watching them really only use the tools about 30% of the capabilities, and so we're not even getting, these companies are not even getting their money out of some of the investments that they made, because the tools offer sometimes complexity that challenges an already busy security engineer, right? That's got other things to do, and then is still trying to learn to mature these tools. And so when we typically go into some of these environments and look at some of the tools that are deployed, they're only about 30% utilized. So there's this illusion, like you said, Zach, that you're going to get this piece of technology that's going to fix all your problems. And I guess the core of the conversation is that people can't be replaced by technology. I mean, there's just, unfortunately, we're not there yet, right? When the AI is good enough, it creating its own nanobots, then maybe we'll talk, right? But right now, you still need human intelligence to not only configure, deploy, feed, and maintain the tool, but to also be able to react and respond to what the tool is telling them. And a good example here is a SIM dashboard. Everybody's like, a lot of these questionnaires that I see, security questionnaires, and they're all, do you have a SIM dashboard? Are you logging everything centrally? Well, there's a lot of, that's not an easy undertaking, right? It's not something easy to system. I mean, it sounds at a network level, you're like, yeah, we'll just syslog everything to the server. And then we buy this dashboard that, does all this log. Well, you still got to figure out the parsing. You've got to figure out what logs you want to take action on. And, another good example is a native FIM software like Tripwire. Okay, these technologies are great. They will help you absolutely once you get them 100% implemented and you're using 100% of the capability. That's a big road. You talk about a hockey stick. That's a big road. The easy part to getting it into building the server that it's going to go on, and then you're like, okay, well now what do I do? And you've got this care and feeding that has to take place, and then for something like a SIM, you've got to have people to respond. Okay, so the SIM board's going to tell you, oh, we got a brute force login that's happening, for this user's account. This Microsoft Office account keeps getting brute force, bad passwords. The robots aren't going to go look at that, call that user for you and find out what's going on. They're not going to look at that user's phone. You have to have a human do that. So what are they going to do? You're going to fill out a ticket, right? A ticket's going to get created, an incident ticket. You're going to assign that ticket to a human, and you're going to spend man hours chasing down a brute force login that is essentially Pat from, I like to use the word Pat because it's androgynous, but yeah, Pat from HR forgot to change his Microsoft Office 365 password on his phone. So now the phone's trying to log in to get email and it's using a bad password. And now all of a sudden you've wasted, 4 or 5 man hours chasing down Pat on your SIM board because you thought you had a brute force login. So that, and I've said that before, that's a great example because I see that happen. And that's a great example of how software doesn't matter what you spend, is still not going to replace the human intelligence you need to react, respond, correlate incidents, correlate the data, and then go forth and implement a fix, or at very minimum do the investigation work that's required to validate whether it's a real incident or it's just something the tool is seeing in junk data.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that. And the other thing about tools being only utilized about 30%, you got to have resources to manage them. A lot of the small companies think the tools are going to actually save you labor. It's not. You need to have someone to manage the tools. You can't take a network engineer and go, oh, by the way, you're now a security engineer because we have a SIM board for you to look at. The other thing is that, what we're seeing is that with regime change inside of organizations, certain tools are favored by certain management types, certain tools are favored by certain security people, and tools that you're spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever the cost is annually somehow get shuffled to the side for this replacement tool. And no one tells accounting to turn off the renewal, and all of a sudden you have 5 tools doing the same thing and overlapping that no one's really utilizing 100%. So I think first there has to be sanity around what you buy. Second of all, you need to have resources in place to understand, manage, and interpret the data that's coming out. Because Laurel, you're 100% right. AI and your SIM board are not going to contact the user in accounting that doesn't have the right password on their phone and keeps failing on login attempts. It's just not going to happen. Plus, you look at tools like Tripwire and the amount of data that it produces. You need people to just sit there and look at that if that's what you want to do. I can remember a time when we worked with a company that had Sumo, and the amount of data that came into that Sumo log aggregator was just overwhelming.
I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of logs. I mean, it's a mountain of data to sift through, and unfortunately the parsers won't sift through it. And Mike, to your point about these redundant tools that which is very common, right?
Yeah.
What happened to requirements gathering? I mean, does architecture not do like business requirements and try to understand what goals they're trying to meet with said technology they're going to purchase? I mean, that just seems like a real easy way to insert a process at the beginning for that requirements gathering to try to alleviate that redundancy in tools that we see.
Well, I think, and I say this with all due respect to the board members and management that's not technical that approves these things, and mind you, I say with all due respect, but they hear about this new latest greatest thing, or somebody comes and says, we got to have this will make our lives all better, and they go, okay, here's a check
while sitting on the toilet.
Yeah, or we brought up this example before, and it's the guy that read about the thing in the Sky magazine on a plane, the VP that read about it, all of a sudden we got this project that we're working on because he thought it was cool.
Yeah, the other thing that really bothers me is that there's a high turnover rate right now in cybersecurity personnel, and so everybody's looking to pay cut jump. So we've had a lot of that lately, right? Where we've had companies that have tried to hire security professionals. They're there for a week or two, and they get a bigger offer, and they're poached.
Yeah.
Well, we've also worked with companies that have had very solid, very mature, very well implemented security tools. They lose their long-term security engineer for whatever reason. They get a new individual in, and he's like, I don't like any of this stuff. It's not going to work for us. We need to put in a new project. We need to put in a new tool. And then what will they do? They'll the exact same thing. They'll spend 3 or 4 months ripping out the old technologies, putting in new technologies, and it's really more like 12 months.
Yeah.
And then they'll leave and say, I'm going to get a job for, 50 grand more because I, successfully did this project at this one company. And now you're proliferating this same behavior, right? And so now you've got a new security tool, and you're going to have a new security engineer. What's he going to think of it? So you're right. There's got to be some sanity around what we're trying to accomplish with the tool set.
Yeah. So I keep coming back to this one organization that had a huge software tool in beta for 4 years because the guy that initially purchased it left.
Yeah, and I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they were just, we'll just keep paying for it. We'll eventually use it.
Meanwhile, they should pay their security professionals more so they stay. Right? Redirect that budget.
a lot of the smaller companies can't afford to. They bring them in, you get their chops, and then they move on to somebody bigger for 40, 50, 60 grand more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to the security professionals that are doing that, like, first off, I'm not gonna bash you on your personal endeavors and your goals for being a CISO or risk officer or whatever it is that you want to do in your career. But I will say that you're doing a severe injustice to some of these companies who rely on you for your expertise to help protect them. Because that's goal number one, right? Is to protect these businesses so that we're not getting bullied from China and Russia and Iran and everybody else that's North Korea that's playing in this cyber criminal game, right? We're supposed to be protecting these organizations. So again, I'm conflicted because I understand the pursuit of happiness and money and all that, but I also understand what the core service that our profession is supposed to provide to the backbone of America. And just so you know, I'm gonna say, hey, congrats on the new job, but that was dirty.
Well, you gotta look at the flip side of this too. If you're managing cybersecurity professionals or anybody else really, you have to treat them with respect. You have to take care of them. You have to provide them with training. You have to provide them with time off. You cannot treat them like chattel, right? You have to treat them properly. And we've both worked at organizations where we have been treated horribly, especially with people outside our organization. We actually talk about this in the book where it's like, you get some VP of sales shouting down your cybersecurity engineers because he knows better. And the manager for your cybersecurity professionals just shrinks because he doesn't want to play the political game. You do that, and I applaud you for leaving. Guaranteed, I'll send you a bottle of scotch if you leave that organization because they deserve what they get.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that going on right now, right? With this whole, this whole, mass exodus of workplace.
Yeah.
But it's to the point, Mike, this all has a lot to do with bad leadership, right? And you should be treating all your employees, right? Yes, you should be respecting your cybersecurity professionals. They're trying to save your butt, but you need to treat all your employees with respect. And bad leadership, I think, is probably one of the root problems on why individuals are leaving. And we've got bad projects, and we've got unfinished projects, and we've got half deployed tools, and we've got redundant tools. Leadership needs to check themselves and try to figure out what's really going on, I think, before this gets worse.
So
The big secret is managers that the cybersecurity professional knows more than you do. So stay in your lane.
So what you're saying is just continue the beatings until morale improves, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Can I have another?
Yeah.
Well, hey, to switch gears a little bit, let's speak to those people who are maybe in that situation, or they have problems, they have issues, gaps to address. And I want to also say, I know we're not bashing tools for bashing tools, right? We use plenty of security products and tools and different types of solutions, technologies, and products they are critical. They're a part of your security program. But if you are in that decision maker's seat, maybe who doesn't have a background in this stuff, and they have these problems and are looking to just put patches on them with different solutions, what advice would you give to them to, one, figure out, do they really need that? And two, finding the right solution for their problem?
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, the first thing you do is you take an inventory of everything you've got. Second of all, you take a look at your requirements. Then you decide, and then you look at the tools that you have and decide what fulfills what. And if you have one tool out there that does 90% of what you need, then that's the tool you focus on. And then you find something else to augment the other 10%. You don't just keep chasing additional tools. You leverage to the full extent possible the tool set that you own.
Amen and hallelujah. I could have said that better myself.
And then
check what you got.
Yeah, stop renewing the other ones and cancel them and say, thank you very much, have a nice day. And that's the simplest way to do it. And, implement like you mentioned before, Laurel, a architectural requirements process for buying anything new. What does this solve? What does this do? Do we already have this in place? Why would we replace it? Just because it's the latest, sexiest thing that you saw, at Black Hat, who cares?
Dude, they powder coated this Dell 2U in like sexy red, and I wanted to buy it. I didn't even know what it was. I just love the color. I was like, I gotta have that.
Yeah.
Gotta have it in my data center.
That's
Yeah.
how they get you.
That's how they get you, shiny colors. But I don't think you could have said it better. Requirements, architectural requirements, like, and I hate to throw out the return on investment form, but do an ROI. Make sure you're going to get your money out of what you're getting. And then, gosh, not to echo again what Mike said, but for God's sakes, look at what you have and make sure that because a lot of it, like Zach was saying, there's a gold rush happening right now. Every tool on the market right now is trying to add modules to try to be the better software vendor for cybersecurity tools. So go back and look at your vendor and say, okay, well, we need this. Well, we need, at rest encryption, right? For the laptops. Is there something you're using today that has that module, right? If you've got McAfee or Sophos or any of these other on device software apps, do they have a module that you can pay for that will give you the security, the security technology that you're looking to implement? If the answer is yes, it's a lot cheaper and a lot easier to just add on that module than it is to try to buy another product and redeploy and re-architect and the whole bit. So, again, please look at the tools that you got and make sure that they don't offer those capabilities that you're looking to get.
I might add too, I think I see it out there in the marketplace all the time, right? Because people come to us all the time saying, hey, I think we need this, this, and this. But more often than not in those situations, I think there are a lot of companies out there saying, yeah, go buy all these tools. But more often than not, these companies, they're looking down the road at all these different things, but they don't even have like a core framework they're following, like CIS controls or NIST or something like that. So they don't really have any type of plan for a security program.
Right.
And this is more on the small business side, mid-sized businesses, right? They will often just start jumping on and start layering things up before they really think through, well, what does our environment look like today? What do we already have built into our technologies? And what are we going to build our program based on? So I'd say start there.
Well,
start
MSPs selling stuff to their clients, to the local MSP saying, oh, you need this service, you need this service, you need this service. And the MSP doesn't fully even understand the security service they're trying to sell.
Very common. Well put.
And I'll just use this example, a security framework, CIS, NIST 171, CMMC, doesn't matter, PCI, they're going to say that you need security awareness training.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't need to go buy a KnowBe4 subscription, right? You don't need to have, $1 million, a billion-dollar company doing $1 million videos that, don't get me wrong, I love it. We're a user of KnowBe4. I'm not going to say we're not, but it's an amazing software. It's an amazing training platform, but the framework doesn't say you have to use them. If you can't afford that, you can still go the old fashioned way. You can use a free online security awareness training. You can build your own, pull everybody into a conference room and give them the PowerPoint slide. That is still applicable. Is it boomer techish? Yes, it is. That's okay. If, you need to stay in your financial lane. If some of these are out of reach, you can still meet compliance by doing it the old-fashioned way and just coming up with your own training. And so that's a great example of, you could get us to do it. I mean, that would be the easiest thing. But if you can't afford even us, you can get on the internet, find some, common themes for awareness training and build yourself a PowerPoint slideshow and start dishing it out. Get up there in front of everybody and talk.
Yeah. To that note, shameless plug here. But if you can't afford to hire a consultant, you can buy Cyber Rants on Amazon,
right?
And listen to the Cyber Rants podcast and learn a lot through those ways that you would pay thousands, many tens of thousands of dollars to a consultant to learn. So
the Cyber Rants book is like it's like a gold mine of information if you're new to the cyber world of cybersecurity. It's certainly worth the very minimum price that we can get for it.
Well, and I think listening to Cyber Rants, the podcast weekly, forcing your employees to do so would qualify as security training.
Yeah, it probably would. Yeah, because we give news, we give exploit, and we have a solid topic. So I think you're right, Mike. I would count that as awareness training.
That's an excellent point. Now it's up to you to track them. They have to sign off that they listen to it and all that. Maybe give them some quiz questions, but excellent point. Well, good stuff all around today. I applaud you, gentlemen. This has been really good conversation. And we could probably talk about this for another 6 hours here, but
don't applaud me. I'm a tool.
Okay. I think you mean cyborg, right? But that being said, any final comments for the audience before we jump off here today?
Cybersecurity engineers, if you're being treated poorly by your management, don't be afraid to pull up roots and move on, because there are so many jobs out there. There's no reason to stay and be treated like garbage.
Gosh, there's like 15 open recs, maybe 20 open recs for every one security professional. So don't, certainly take care of your career. I'll echo that. Take care of your career and don't bow to bad management. And if you're in a good place, do your requirements, right? Do your requirements gathering, understand what tools you have today, and if they offer the capabilities that you're looking for to make it easier on you, so you're not ripping out stuff and retrofitting things.
Yeah, and the other thing is, don't be a mercenary either. I mean, don't hop from good company to good company just for the extra 10 grand.
The injustice.
And I'll wrap it up by saying, I really think cybersecurity, I mean, it's even just in the commercial spectrum, not government spectrum, but I mean, it is absolutely frontline of defense for the United States, and other countries around the world. So, treat it as such. If you're in this industry, you have a duty to protect, the backbone of our American economy, and if you're here in the States, that is something that you shouldn't take lightly, because you have been given the ability to do that firsthand, right? It used to be that you had to pick up a rifle and get on a ship or fly over to another country, right? But now, I mean, the attacks are right here in our own digital environment. So different kind of battle, but hey, it's still a battle. So don't take it lightly. We certainly don't. And that's why we try to put out good information and share experiences and such openly, to the public. So that being said, hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you subscribe to the Cyber Rants podcast, rate us. That helps other people find us. Send us your questions, cyberrantspodcast.com, topics you're interested in us talking about and whatnot, because we want to hear from you. We want to make sure everything is meaningful for you, and your interaction helps us reach more people and make more of a difference out there in the world of cybersecurity and compliance. Everybody loves compliance. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.